This is the Fiqh and Fatwa, Modern Problems, Timeless Solutions session. As we know as Muslims, it's not enough that we utter the Shahada or we believe in Islam. It's not an abstract set of ideas we agree to, but in every action we are constantly reminding ourselves that this is our relationship with Allah Ta'ala, and as those who study fiqh know, it's a very detail-oriented science, and actions are not divorced from philosophical beliefs, but they're rather intertwined. Today's session, inshallah, will explore, as societies evolve, new issues arise requiring contemporary interpretations of Islamic law. It is essential to adapt while maintaining the core principles of Islam. So how does the system of fiqh and how do fatwa work within the Islamic system? Our second speaker is Sheikh Mustaf Umar. Sheikh Mustaf Umar completed his bachelor's in information and computer science from the University of California, Irvine, as well as a bachelor's in theology and Islamic law from the European Institute of Islamic Sciences in France. After that, a master's of arts in Islamic studies from the University of Gloucestershire, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, in the UK. He also studied Islamic sciences for a year at Nadwatul Ulama in Lucknow, India, and spent another year studying in Cairo, Egypt. Mustaf Umar later completed the traditional Ifta program at Darul Ifta, Birmingham, UK, granting him the traditional title of Mufti or Specialist in Islamic Law. I'll ask Sheikh Mustaf Umar, inshallah, to take the podium for his part of the presentation, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ba'd. So I've been tasked with addressing a few particular issues to build upon what Sheikh Sohail has already mentioned. The first one is, do we need to follow a madhab or a school of thought? So let me just understand my audience very quickly. How many of you have heard the word madhab before? How many of you are aware of this term? Okay, a lot of you, mashallah. How many of you have ever been told that you need to follow a madhab? How many? Oh, quite a significant number, about half the audience. Okay, so what happens is, what is a madhab? A madhab is what's called a school of thought, or it's a way of looking at Islamic law. And it's a way of looking at the Quran and looking at the hadith, and you interpret a verse of the Quran or you interpret a hadith according to a particular way in which not everyone is going to look at every single word the exact same way. So what happens is, if you go into an Islamic university, or even if you go into a high school level program, you're going to find two approaches to studying Islamic law. So if you take Islamic law, the word is fiqh usually. You mean Sharia or fiqh? Fiqh is the study of Islamic law. So if you go in and you enroll yourself into a program, you're going to have either a book or you're going to have a class, and they're going to teach fiqh or Islamic law either according to one of two approaches. Approach number one will be through a madhab. What are the madhabs? There's a Hanafi school, a Shafi'i school, a Maliki school, a Hanbali school. There are four main primary widespread madhabs in the world. So what's going to happen is, if you go into a curriculum where they're teaching the Hanafi school, and when you're praying, you say Allahu Akbar, where are your hands going to be when you hold your hands? For men, they're going to be below your navel. And if you learn according to the Shafi'i school, what's going to happen? They're going to be above the navel. And when you go down into ruku' and you go down into bowing position, you're going to add an extra hands going up, Shafi'i school. And if you follow the Hanafi school, or if you're taught the Hanafi school, the hands don't go up. You go straight into ruku'. So there's going to be some small differences here. And what ends up happening is, whichever school you end up joining or whichever book you end up buying to teach you, you're either going to get a book according to one of these four schools. And this has become very prominent. And it's important for you to understand why. Why would somebody have a particular school? Why does this curriculum have to have a Hanafi school or a Shafi'i school or a Maliki school or something like that? What's the point of that? Well, there's a reason. The reason is because when you're studying Islamic law, there's a lot of benefits to make sure that you're being trained in a way where people around you in the same school, they're not just going to be choosing random opinions all over the place, but rather you have one particular approach to studying Islamic law. So you're going to find that historically, 200 years ago, 500 years ago, 700 years ago, 900 years ago, this became a very famous and popular way for people to study Islam, Islamic law, fiqh. Whenever you go to a school, they're going to identify which madhab they are studying. So this is one approach to studying Islamic law. The second approach to studying Islamic law is to say, we don't follow any madhab at all. In fact, we don't even believe in madhabs. These madhabs, these are all just made up schools. We shouldn't follow any of them. We follow directly from the Quran and from the Hadith. So we're not going to teach you what did Imam Abu Hanifa from the Hanafi school say. We're not going to teach you what Imam Malik from the Maliki school said. We're going to teach you just only what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught. So every single time you learn a rule, we're going to put a hadith there. These are two ways of studying Islam. And within the two ways, there became two extreme approaches. The first extreme approach, when it came to studying through a madhab, it began by people saying, when you study a book, you must pick a madhab. You pick the Shafi'i school, and you pick the Hanafi school, or you pick the Maliki school, and you must stick to that school no matter what, and you never ever leave that school. And if you ever have a question about Islam, you have to go and find. If you're Shafi'i, you identify as Shafi'i. I hate the word identify due to the LGBT thing. But anyways, you studied, you consider yourself to be the Maliki madhab or whatever. You must find a scholar that follows that particular madhab, and you must ask them, what is the Maliki opinion on this particular issue? Now, and they say, if you don't, and you see another opinion, or you ask another sheikh, and they give you another answer, you're following your desires, because you left your own school, and you're just picking whatever you want. It's like fatwa shopping, like it's some kind of store, you just go with whatever's the best price. This is one extreme approach, and the reason why it happened is because scholars, at some point hundreds of years ago, they saw people doing exactly this. They were fatwa shopping. So they would go to one scholar, and they'd say, you know what? What's the ruling on dog saliva? I encounter a lot of dogs, or I like playing with dogs. And the Shafi'i scholar is going to say, you must wash off the dog's saliva 7 times with water and 1 time with dirt or soap. Every single time, even a little tiny bit of dog saliva comes to you, and even if the dog brushes against you or something like that, you have to go clean your pants, and you can't just take them to the dry cleaners. And you can't just put them in the washing machine. You need to wash them 7 times. And you say, this is really tough. I'm looking for something a little bit easier. Let me go and ask somebody else. And you ask the other sheikh, hey, that was a tough answer. What's your opinion on dog saliva? And they give you another answer. The Hanafi school will say, oh, you only need to wash it 3 times. You say, oh, I like that one. It's much easier. You say, but maybe there's an easier one. Let me go and ask somebody else. And you keep on asking and asking and asking, and then you're hoping to find an answer that basically gives you the absolute easiest thing. 5 minutes? 20 minutes. All right. I'm going to speed this up then. Time just got cut in half. All right, so you do all of that, and you're basically trying to get something that's the easiest for you. What are you supposed to be doing as a Muslim? What you're supposed to be doing is you're supposed to be trying to do what you think Allah and His Messenger really intended and really wanted. That should always be the case. So the view was, if you leave your madhab for any reason, you must be following your desires automatically. And that became one extreme view in the group of people who say you must follow a madhab. Then the second view is that we don't need these madhabs, and we don't, who's Abu Hanifa and Shafi and Malik? Who are these people? We only do what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We only care about these human beings. What do they know? And the problem with that approach is, you're learning hadith, you're learning Quran, but the problem with the approach is, we don't care what anybody has said for 1400 years. We're starting fresh. We're going to look ourselves at what the Quran says. We don't need tafsir. Look at what the hadith says. We don't need interpretations of any of these people. They're all human beings. We're human beings. If you look at any subject, does anyone approach a subject like that. If you look at medicine, let's say we some doctors in the audience, right? Somebody breaks their arm, right? Should we look at 1400 years of what have doctors said throughout history, and they built upon, they've dealt with a million broken arms. What did all these doctors say? So, who are these doctors? They're human beings, we're human beings, forget all that. We're going to experiment from scratch, we're going to look at your arm directly, and I don't care what all the intellectual history of medicine has said, all that needs to be thrown away. I'm smart enough to figure this out on my own. I'm going to look at this arm and figure it out by myself. That's not the way medicine works. That's not the way law works. That's not the way history works. That's not the way philosophy works. That's not the way any subject works. So it became an extreme where the second extreme on this side became, we're going to ditch and throw away the entire intellectual legacy and history of Muslims for 1400 years. And Muslims were very clever. They're known to be, throughout history, other societies were not even as clever as Muslims at all. So these are two really extreme approaches, and what we need to do is we need to make sure we don't go into any of these extremes, but we're somewhere in the middle. So I'm just going to summarize that. What about this idea of Googling fatwas and stuff like that? Well, we need to be careful for two reasons. Number one, the context matters very much. So if you go on a website, or you go to Google, or even if you go on a website, islamqa.com, .org, .net, whatever it is, they're fighting over domains. Not going to get into that. And you type something in there, you see an answer. That answer might have been written in Sudan, or in Saudi Arabia, or in Iran, or in some other context. And it doesn't necessarily apply in your context. So you say, okay, we're going to a scholar, we're going to someone who's knowledgeable, we're going to somebody who knows what they're talking about. But do you know the context in which it was said? Number one. Number two, is this the only scholar that has answered this question? I mean, is there a reason to go and ask somebody else? So I'm going to quote you a fatwa from the Sheikh al-Islam of the Ottoman Empire. Sheikh al-Islam Hussein from the Ottoman Empire was asked a question, and this is in his fatwa collection, multi-volume fatwa collection. He said, Zayd is drunk. Not a good Muslim officer. Zayd gets drunk, and he divorces his wife with a triple divorce. According to the Hanafi scholar, Ottoman Empire, the Turks were Hanafis. So he says, according to the Hanafi school, this is going to count despite the fact that he was drunk. After daybreak, he's sober again, he has a hangover, whatever it is, and now he denies that he ever pronounced talaq to his wife. But his wife Hind is unable to prove that she remembers him making the triple divorce. So the question that the lady asked, this is a real question. What is the way for Hind to save herself from zina? Because from the wife's perspective, Hind's perspective, she got divorced, triple divorce, despite the fact that the guy was drunk. But now he's denying it and saying, I didn't do that. She said, between me and Allah, this guy's not my husband anymore. So if I'm continuing to live with him, this is haram. This is zina. So I need to do something, so what do I do? So Shaykh al-Islam, his response was, if no other means of escape is possible, it is allowed to add poison to Zayd's food. And you kill him. Now sisters, please don't take this fatwa home. Okay? Is this from a legitimate scholar? Absolutely. This is the Shaykh al-Islam, the top scholar in the Ottoman Empire. And he's saying you could put poison in his food. And do you know why they said that? Because he's assuming a situation which you're probably not in. The assumption is that this guy is a tyrannical husband. I mean, he's getting drunk. Something's wrong. Your husband's probably not in this category. He's getting drunk. The woman, he's denying now that he ever made the pronouncement. The woman has a sense of taqwa, and she's like, I can't be with this guy anymore. I follow strictly the Hanafi madhab. And there's nobody else to ask. In the Ottoman Empire, Hanafi madhab was spread across the board. This was what she had available to her. This is before internet and all that. It's hundreds of years ago. And then she's saying that, you know what, this guy is going to keep me stuck inside the house. and he's going to try to approach me the next day, and I don't want to do anything that is haram. But if I do something to this guy, I'm going to be in trouble. Not just in front of Allah, I'm going to be in trouble. How do I save myself? I'm going to be in trouble with the law. Because the rule on killing, according to the Hanafi madhab, is if you commit murder and you kill somebody, what is the potential punishment back for you? Qisas, retaliation, you will be killed unless they forgive. So if I kill this husband of mine, okay, I'm not trying to give you ideas here, but if I kill this husband of mine, they might end up killing me, so I'll be dead. So how do I get out of this? Well, in the Hanafi school, they have two different types of murder. So if you kill somebody with, let's say you go and you shoot somebody and you're trying to shoot them in the leg. Again, please don't take this as a tutorial, okay? It's a scenario. You try and shoot someone, I just want to shoot him in the leg. And you accidentally, you miss. The gun misfires, shoots him in the heart, and he dies. But you can prove that my intention was to just get him in the leg. This is going to be called qatl khata, an accidental murder, right? But it's going to be in the category of qatl shibh amd, which means a semi-intentional murder. So you used a weapon that would normally kill people, but you didn't intend to kill them and they ended up dying. But then there's another type of thing. If somebody comes and says you take a pencil, and you say, I just wanted to poke this person. You accidentally poke them in the heart and they die. Does a pencil normally kill people? No. Let's say you just push someone accidentally, he fell, his head hit a rock, and the guy died somehow. You're like, I just wanted to push you gently, and accidentally you fell and you died. Will you be killed in retaliation? No. So according to the Hanafi school, if you put poison in somebody's food, you will not be subject to a retaliation penalty. So this mufti, this Sheikh al-Islam, is giving a fatwa based upon what he thinks this woman's circumstance is, in order for her to save herself from zina, in order for maybe this guy's going to come and attack her, and there's no other way that she can somehow get out of this. Now imagine you Googled that fatwa and all of a sudden it comes up and you're like, man, my husband, this is the only way for me to do, I'm going to follow. This is Sheikh al-Islam of the Ottoman Empire. Sorry, hubby, poisoning your food. No, so obviously the Sheikh al-Islam came later. Sheikh Abu Sa'ud, one of the great scholars, came back and said, no, you go to the qadi, go to the judge and you ask them to separate the two. There's a way out of this. There's a whole article on this, by the way. It's in the Journal of Islamic Law and Society by a non-Muslim called Colin Imber. It's called Why You Should Poison Your Husband. And it gives you all the different fatwas in the Hanafi school about the different fatwas that have been given by different scholars about poisoning your husband. Now, should you pick and choose what you want? Sisters, please don't pick and choose on this one. Number one. Number two, should you follow the first fatwa that you come across, depending on your context and your circumstance? This is not the way things work, right? So we should be very cautious, we should be very careful, and we should realize that there's a criteria of training for a mufti. So there's one aspect of you need to be careful about what type of fatwas, a fatwa is an answer by a religious scholar. What type of fatwas you're going to be taking, number one. And number two, be very careful who you ask to. This is an exception to the rule where the scholar gave kind of a strange answer here. But you know what's even stranger? You have a question about Islamic law, and you go, I'm just going to ask my friend. Does your friend know anything? He prays. Like, oh, he prays. MashaAllah. So yeah, has he read the entire Quran? Not really. Does he know Arabic? Not really. Does he read tafsir? Has he done any of these studies? Has he done any training whatsoever? If you do that, you're basically saying, you know what? If you have some major problem, let's say you break your leg, you have a sprained ankle. Do you just go to your random friend and be like, hey, can you tell me what to do with my ankle? He goes, I recommend you just drink some coffee and you walk it off. No, you go to somebody who actually has training, who is a doctor, who is a physician, and how many years have they trained for? How many years does it take for you to become qualified physician? It takes like 8 years, 10 years of training. And then you can go and they're still a beginner, and then they need 10 years of experience, and then you say, oh, this is a doctor. If you needed a surgery, would you just go to some random person, hey, listen, look, check this out. Listen, I got here's my pocket knife. Just handle my arm. I got a little problem in my arm. Just cut it up, just handle it. Would you do that? No way. You say this person needs to have a proper scalpel, a laboratory needs to be, done. All of that stuff needs to be taken care of. You need to go to an expert. So it's very important to do two things. Number one, choose the right person when it comes to who you're taking your knowledge from and your fatwa from. And number two, also use a little bit common sense when you're getting an answer from somebody, and you should ask somebody else who has knowledge if either the answer seems strange to you, not because you're trying to get what you want. Number two, if the answer they give you seems that they didn't really understand the scenario that you presented to them. And number three, they've lost credibility in your eyes because of such a poor answer that they had given. This gives you a legitimate reason to ask another expert. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us a deep understanding of Islam. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallahu khairan, Sheikh Mustaf Umar. We've got a lot of ideas and insights on how to maybe harm our spouses. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك والعصر ان الانسان في خسر الا الذين امنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. جزاكم الله خيرا.